Hello and welcome back to the MMA Split podcast. I'm your host Matt, joined by host and producer Josh. UFC Kansas City in the books. Max Holloway defeats Arnold Allen, giving him his first loss in the UFC, second of his career. We'll be talking about that. Edson Barbosa's latest entry into his highlight reel of knockouts. Couple of retirements, couple of fake retirements, couple of talking points on the judging, couple of talking points on the refereeing, couple of bits of news as well. We've lost a fight from UFC 288. It has been moved to 289. We'll be touching on that, as well as the announcement of a couple more fights, and some gossip on what might be replacing Beneil Dariush versus Oliveira at UFC 288. Gilbert Burns has been tweeting, calling Dana White, trying to get something together, seeing if he can make the card more exciting. Looking at that lineup.
Who's left though? Because if Bilal's going to be back up for the title,
Is he going to be back up for the title?
I mean that's what he's been hinting at. That's what Bilal's been teasing, that he's officially back up for Colby Edwards.
We will find out either way. It's possible that as we are recording this very podcast, the UFC are working on a few things to try and make the May 6th Newark card a little bit more exciting. With all that to talk about, first things first, like the video if you're enjoying the content, subscribe if you are not already subscribed, and feel free to leave any comments, thoughts and opinions that you have for us to let you know how we feel. Your feedback is always good, we appreciate it, and nobody comments. We get views but not comments, so come on guys, tell us your thoughts, even if they're negative, we want to hear your feedback.
Yeah, leave your picks on the goddamn pick show as well.
It was not a great week on picks for me, but it was a massive improvement on my below 500 performance at UFC 287. We will discuss that.
See, I haven't officially gone through mine. I think I did okay.
You did better than me, I think. I'm pretty sure you did better than me.
Just looking,
but we will find out.
Going from the top. Did we both go for Gutierrez?
We both went Gutierrez.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll touch on the picks at the end, but first things first, let's talk about the main event. Max Holloway, very technical performance, measured, disciplined, outpointed Allen, outthought Allen a little bit, outstruck Allen. Certainly not a blowout. I thought there was a lot of positives to take away from Allen's performance. And for Max Holloway, this is probably the cleanest he's coming out of a fight in a long time. I feel like this is the least banged up.
Face-wise, but I think Allen was putting in some really good body work. And I think the obvious thing to me was that unless Allen can develop largely in other areas of his game, if they were to rematch, it would have to be Allen on his best night and Holloway on an average night for Allen to win that one. But I think going to the body, trying to slow Holloway down was quite smart. Like, he was landing some powerful shots with that left, and did some good body work. It's just... It was volume versus power as I saw it, and like there was just so much volume and good shots still from Max that I had it close. I did give Allen 2 rounds, but it was still very clear to me Holloway won. It was just cool to see Allen proving that he can just about hang at that level. He's only 29, Max is only 31, but he's really starting to come up there now.
Yeah, I think you can draw a lot of parallels between this fight for Arnold Allen and when Yair Rodriguez fought Max, where both of them lost. Both of them lost probably, you'd say, 49-46 on the scorecards, but could take a lot away from that fight. And you see what Yair Rodriguez has gone on to do since. He's obviously now got an interim belt. He's got a title fight booked in July against Volkanovski to try and win the undisputed belt. Arnold Allen's in that league. This didn't look like when Calvin Kattar fought Max, where it's just like a Your Master forgot, and he got absolutely pulverized. I also thought, I do agree, Max definitely outlanded Allen. I think he landed about double the number of significant strikes in total. But I felt this was a much more measured, technical fight. I thought there was a lot less pressure from Max. There was a lot more movement, trying to set up his shots. He was willing to give a lot more ground for Arnold Allen to try and lure him forward. this looked to me like a Max that's looks at his last few fights, looks at the 3 fights he's lost to Volkanovski, looks at maybe the loss to Poirier and thought, okay, I can walk forward and pressure and out pressure and out volume and eat shots and just melt 99% of the guys I'm going to fight. But there's those 1% of guys, the real elites, where the footwork is too good, they're too intelligent, the game plans are too well set up, and I do that, they're going to pick me apart. And this is what's happening. And I'll still look good, but I won't look good enough to win these fights. And this looked to me like Max. I mean, it's the least number of shots he's eaten in maybe since the Frankie Edgar fight. So it's a huge reduction in the shots he ate. He landed less, but I thought he technically looked very, very proficient. And I thought that this looked like a much more sustainable method of fighting for what he wants to go forward and do and to have a longer career.
Yeah. He was able to fight a lot longer. And I think that was because that was sort of necessary to shut down Allen's kind of biggest avenue to victory. I was getting those like that left body hook on the inside, but yeah, it's a great performance from Max. Like I say, like measured, not slowing down, not tailing off. It'd be interesting. He's asking for Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie. I gotta believe he wins that fight. Even
wait, Max is asking for.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that to the Zombie, man.
Yeah, but look at it from Max's point of view. He's got to wait for Yair to beat Volkanovski to get the next title shot. Otherwise, it's like, you know, if you lose 3 fights, they don't give you a 4th fight. I mean, shit, usually if you lose 2 fights, they won't give you a 3rd championship fight against the same guy.
Yeah.
And if Volkanovski wants to flirt with going up to 55 again, he's probably going to get that chance at an interim bout. But it's like, you got to keep winning. You got to stay up there. Korean Zombie, it's a fan favourite against a fan favourite.
Beat Zombie's last fight.
Yep. It'd be kind of big. It'd be fun.
I feel like Max wouldn't... If Max is getting the better of him, I don't think... You know what I mean? I don't think he'd fuck the Zombie up. I think he'd...
Yeah. I mean, you got to be careful with, like, Korean Zombie as well. I mean, Yair Rodriguez was literally seconds away from getting, you know, a pretty resounding unanimous decision.
You've got that the wrong way. You've got that the wrong way around.
Was
Zombie was about to get a unanimous decision against Yair.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, Yair, like, managed to do it. Like, he had seconds left to do it. Like, he was on the verge of getting his ass whooped.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being harsh to the Zombie man. It's hard to delete that visual of him fighting Volkanovski and just getting dominated. That's very fresh in my mind.
He's old, a lot of injuries. That Ortega fight was very frustrating for him. The Rodriguez fight was very frustrating. And I think by the time he came up against Volkanovski, it was just a terrible style matchup. And he was just too young. Too old, he just didn't have the same pop, same with his footwork. It was going to be very, very difficult to land any serious shots on him. It kind of felt like, you know, the Aldo fight, but even worse because he was almost moving in slow motion versus that. It was what it was. But I think Holloway, Korean Zombie makes sense to me for Holloway. It means you don't have to worry about, you know, the likes of like Ilia Topuria. Are going to have to deal with the Arnold Allens of the division now. Instead of you can kind of wait for either Yair to win, and he's even said if Yair wins, Volkanovski would deserve the immediate rematch. But let's assume that Yair wins twice, or Volk wins, goes back up to 55, and they do an interim title. Like, it's going to be Holloway and someone.
Yeah.
If he beats when he beats Korean Zombie, but you gotta say if because it's sport, isn't it? Like, let's not be dicks about it.
He's already fought Ortega, and Ortega's been out for a while. He needs to win to get back to max level. Already beaten Qatar. Josh Emmett's fighting Ilia Topuria. Yeah, there's not a lot of other names left. Max versus Chang Sung Jung would be fun. Arnold Allen? He could fight the winner of Evloev versus Bryce Mitchell.
Possibly.
That would be a good style matchup. No, I mean it'd be an interesting style matchup.
I think he's more like. Has he really fought Emmett?
No, he fought Calvin Cater. He didn't fight Emmett.
So I think he's more likely to get the win of the Topuria Emmett fight. So I think he's more likely to get Topuria. I think Evloev Mitchell might be a bit of a reach. I don't think he's gonna have a problem with like looking down that far. I just think they're gonna look to put together a bigger fight first, because they know that Volkanovski's got an eye on doing the champ thing. They're gonna want to kind of start setting things up so that if he does beat Yair, then it's going to be a case of, okay, we've almost got like 3 separate kind of fights that are right there, and then we just pick our 2 favourite winners, and that's the interim.
Yeah. We'll see. They're going to want some other names than Max. They might want to give a guy a route to the title that doesn't involve fighting Max. Because otherwise you do get into a situation. It's like, well, if Max is just going to beat every fucking contender apart from the current champion, it's going to get a bit ridiculous. Talking about Josh Arnold Allen very quickly. Fought well, but did lose. Dana White was a bit critical, not so much of Arnold Allen, I keep saying Josh Allen, of Arnold Allen, but more of his cornermen, saying that they didn't really have any sense of urgency until he was already 3-1 down on the cards.
Well, actually, he was 4-0 down. The all of the judges that gave him a round gave him the 5th. No one gave him the 2nd.
The 5th is a Max round for me, and the 2nd is a Allen round.
I gave both to Allen, but like they were still close rounds. The other three rounds less so, very much more clear for Max. But I felt like Allen did well throughout the fight. It's just
either way. Do you think there was a lack of urgency, or do you think the problem is because the rounds are close, you kind of get caught in this, or maybe we've nicked it?
Okay, so you know that now the scoring criteria favours damage. You know he's landing the more damaging shots, but Max has got the volume. We've seen several head-scratching decisions. Although I'm not as upset about the opening when we get around to that one. We won't touch on it long because it's the first fight, but you know, there was that feeling in the air where they were like, the judges and the refs aren't really up to scratch tonight, so let's not fucking overthink it. It's a close fight. I mean, some fighters like to have that calm kind of attitude throughout. Others prefer a much more kind of intense approach. But I mean, look at fucking John Kavanagh's usually like calm as fuck, but people over, he was like, yeah, let's fucking get out there. Yeah.
Allen had a lot of success in that last round, whether you scored it for him or not. Like when he did put the pressure on, and obviously it's different. It's the last round. You can just kind of burn the gas, empty the gas tank, but he did seem to have a lot more success, and he showed he could catch Max, taking the pressure forward a little bit more. Now, he also got dropped at the end, but it's the last 10 seconds. I don't think he was really thinking about defense at that point. And I kind of like to see that somebody like Allen, who's quite a measured fighter, has that willingness to go, fuck it, let's just trade down.
Yeah.
I thought maybe after round 3, you kind of say to him, listen, that's, you know, we're probably 2-1 down. We can't afford... I would have probably thought maybe you say, we really need to win this round. And I know you say that he was landing the more damaging shots. I know that there is the old idea of scoring damage. I still think that just because the shots of one guy's a little bit harder than the other guy's shot.
One damaging shot, really damaging shot, doesn't necessarily outweigh 2 slightly damaging shots. It depends, and it's ultimately is fucking subjective.
Well, is it subjective?
It's not like I don't think the judges got it wrong. I mean, you think that they should have given him 2. I think they should have given him 2. They gave him 5. I agree with that. You disagree with that, but we're not
debating the decision. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like they really fucked this one up. They seem to get this one pretty much right.
Random question, but do you think that damage should also be subjective to the person receiving it? So, if Max Holloway eats a hard left hook, do you think there should be a factor of going, well, that is a damaging shot, but it's Max Holloway who just eats this shit for breakfast, so we can't score it? Like, if you ate
Let's say, like, so if you brought back, like, prime, like, Chuck Liddell and guys were, like, cracking him in the face and for whatever reason it did go to a decision, Like, I don't care how well he wears it. It's the same with like GSP. Like, he'd always complain about how he like bruises like a peach and he always looks really fucked up after a fight. You don't base it on how the guy looks. You base it on how damaging the shots were, and how clean the shots were and stuff. I mean, half the time when like fighters are all fucked up and cut, it is from like accidental head clashes. You can't judge it by how much damage you think a fighter can take. You can't judge it by how much damage you can see. You judge it round by round. Which fighter caused the most damage in that round, and then you just fucking move on to the next round. You don't overthink it.
If it was about how your face looked at the end, Dan Henderson would have never lost a decision.
That's true. Do
you have anything to say on the main event before we move on? That hasn't already
No, other than good fight, and I mean, both these guys have a long way to go if they're going to topple Volkanovski. But you never know what the fuck's going to happen. Maybe Yair Rodriguez pulls it out of the bag twice. Maybe Volk loses some momentum. I don't fucking know. But both guys are there or thereabouts, but neither of them look like they're ready to be the champion again. Or the champion for the first time. It's just...
Do you think too many guys idolise Max in the division?
No.
Yair Rodriguez talked about it. Alan talked about it. But as in, like, so many Max fights when they're not against Volkanovski now, they look like he beats the guy and then the guy kind of hugs him afterwards and is beaten up and goes, oh man, I love Max. Like, it's an honour to fight him. Like, do you think maybe there's too much of a mystique that goes into it or an aura about fighting somebody like, even though he's not even the champ anymore?
I think when you get to fight a guy that's not going to be a prick about it, really values the sport for what it is, goes about it the right way, I think at that point it's just an honour to be in there with him. I know there's like, you know, Bisping refused to like... have any niceties with like Anderson Silva between the first and second round when they fought, because he was like, I'm not playing his fucking mind games. But with Max, it's not mind games. I think that's just genuinely how he is. So
I don't think
when they idolize him, I'm like, yeah, totally fucking appropriate. The guy is a legend. He is a living fucking legend in that division, and it's such a great division as well, because Volkanovski's very much the same kind of fucking guy. Aside from how upset they got about Islam perhaps IVing.
They must. They had to have really good reason to be as forthcoming with that as they did. But that's a different topic for a different podcast.
Yeah.
Let's move on and talk about a lightweight legend. He's been down at featherweight. He's not always had the easiest time at featherweight. There's been ups, there's been downs, there's been a couple of shitty decisions. There's been some bad style matchups for him.
Yeah.
Some bad fights, some bad performances by his standards. A few fights where it looks like he was kind of on the way out a little bit, declining.
Yeah.
Which is why I picked Billy Quarantillo. But every now and again, Barbosa, he's so technical. It's got such slick Muay Thai.
I didn't even see it was a fucking knee. I thought it was the left.
Oh, buddy, I didn't even understand what went on. And I thought, even when he was hunched over, I was like, oh, he's like, kneed him in the liver and drops him with like a body shot. And then you see it on the replay and it's like, man, the fact that he timed it, he waited for the jab in a clinch, like right up against him.
Yes, it's slow that replay down twice as fast, twice as slow, and play it 3 more times for me, please. Because my brain can't figure out what just happened. That just was unnatural.
Billy Quarantillo, I think he just thought, I'm outside of the danger zone. I've done the hard bit. I've closed the distance. I've pushed myself out of kicking range. I have him where I want him, clinching me up, using energy against the fence. That was probably his fight camp. Everything they worked on was probably get to this position, now put pressure on.
Yeah.
And I just wondered, do you think he relaxed a little bit? Just took his eye off the ball, thought, I'm not in danger. Like, that sense of relief. I've got past the difficult part. Now this is where I can go to work.
This is the thing with Barbosa, is sometimes he can just pull off very, very sophisticated things. I mean, the greatest one ever was when Beneil Dariush used the same takedown setup like 3 times. Not even in a row, just throughout the fight, used it 3 times. And on the third one, Barbosa just kneed him into the netherworld.
The difference there, though, is that was in space. Like, this was so close up. You just wouldn't have thought that
this is how high his level is, though, that he can read these moments and pull off these weird fucking things. You know, he's not quite Anderson Silva in his prime, but on his fucking day, like, he can be as good as an Anderson Silva. He is such a... It's not just... how fast he can move his body. It's how fast his mind and his instincts can go as well.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, the guy doesn't relish like the fighting and the competition. It's just he really loves striking and martial arts, and this is why he drives himself to compete. And I'm fucking glad that was a pretty sick fucking KO.
Well, he's got one for the highlight reel, man.
Yeah.
He can start collecting just his knees. Imagine this, having just a highlight reel of just your knees.
Yeah.
Because he's had the body knee KO,
Yeah.
2 flying knee KOs on takedown attempts. That's knees alone. Then he's obviously had the delayed knockout against Shane Burgos, spinning heel kick of Terry Etam,
and now
body kick hell against Dan Hooker. I mean, that's not a singular knockout, but like,
no, that was,
if you want to show highlights of just 45 seconds of just a man's liver getting destroyed.
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, do you want to see how hard Dan Hooker is? That's that fight who's just like, do you want to see what insanity looks like?
He told him he just needed to put the pressure on. Just walk forward. Pressure him. It's not that
How else
simple.
was Dan Hooker going to win that fight?
Well, Billy Quarantillo did not win that fight. I don't even think he looked that upset. That's one of those ones where it's just like, I'm not even angry, I'm just impressed.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
Even the coaches, even Billy's coaches were just like,
Man.
man.
It's pretty sick.
That's pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Legend of the game, Barbosa gets a great win. Feature fight. Okay. Obviously got the Quarantillo pick wrong. Max pick right. Mirzakhanov, I don't know if you went for this one.
No, I went Jacoby.
Yeah, I got this right. And Mirzakhanov, I thought, just boxed really well. Hurt him. Damaged him.
Yeah.
Beat him up. Jacoby looks a little frail. A little fragile when you crack him.
Well, Mirzakhanov's got a lot of power. And credit to Jacoby for coming back the way he did in the third.
True.
But it was just too little too late. It was just the thing is that even when you start things outside and set things outside, if a guy doesn't have to have a super sophisticated counter shot, if he can just crack you that hard, like, I'm not saying Mirzakhanov got lucky or anything. I'm just saying Jacoby needed a completely different strategy to try and win that fight. I really think he should have feinted way more, just spammed leg kicks, feinted takedowns, and just stayed away from any kind of big shots. And just tried to maybe get some body kicks in or something just to try and slow him down enough that by the time it got to the third round and his cardio started to show through a bit more and he was able to use his size and his range a bit more. But it was always going to be a bit of a tough one. I didn't give Mirzakhanov enough credit coming into this one. I thought Jacoby was going to win it. But it was a great fight.
Mirzakhanov stays undefeated. Jacoby takes a step backwards, unfortunately.
Only a small step, though, I think.
Yeah, he's
in this weight class, I think there's always going to be kind of chances to move up.
True. Okay, let's talk about a fighter we got very wrong. Very, very wrong. We were so excited about Tanner Boser at light heavyweight, and I did
say it was an easy pick, but I did also say that I didn't think Kutalaba was like. I said Kutalaba had some power here, and
no, I've decided it, mate. It's official. Heavyweight is a shit division. It's full of bunch of overweight.
Heavyweight.
No, heavyweight's a shit division.
Oh, right.
Okay. Heavyweight shit. It's full of a bunch of. There's like 2 good people and the rest fucking useless, and that's why John Jones can take 3 years off, go in and beat the number 1 contender in like a minute and a half. What happened the last time that a light heavyweight champion went up to heavyweight? He won in like a minute and a half. Okay, and Stipe might be the only actual good heavyweight apart from Curtis Blades and maybe a Russian guy, Aspinall as well. But there's like 4 of them. Everyone else is shit. Kutalaba has looked awful. So awful for his last like 6 fights. He has not looked good. And Tanner Boser got fucking steamrolled.
Well, the other one is heavyweights get paid more than the average fighter, and the problem is that the UFC tends to bring in like high level heavyweights later in their career. Like they already did Bellator or like back in the day, like when they brought him in from Strikeforce. Like
Tanner Bosa did not
Basically,
do
like
that at
half
all.
of their rankings came in through. No, Tanner Bosa didn't, but fucking like Volkov did.
Yeah, well,
Like, do you know
Volkov
what I
was
mean?
K1 as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, but this is my point.
Not K1.
They bring in guys a little
KSW.
too late for heavyweight because they don't want to pay them. They want to have they want to balance the books a little bit more. So this division is kind of hard to fill anyway, because you have just less humans of that size, and humans of that size get leached off to other sports a lot more easily. But also, just the UFC don't want to fucking pay heavyweight money to heavyweight prospects.
Bosa looks slow.
Shit, they don't want to pay fucking heavyweight champ money to fucking Ngannou. Like,
Bosa looks like a guy that's used to having a very big speed advantage against slower, bigger people, and was the slower, bigger guy, and it did not work out well for him at all.
he wasn't big. He came in, was it like 203 or something?
No, but he's a taller human.
I mean, the range and everything, yeah.
The range, just the movement. There was... Kusalaba was more explosive. He was faster. Bosa was
at
not...
the same time, I think if you run that fight back a few times, Bosa's probably winning all those fights. Kutalaba just caught him. I think Kutalaba caught him with the power, and there was just no coming back from that.
I feel he caught him because he's faster, and Bosa just couldn't process the speed. Maybe he can adjust. Maybe you get used to fighting quicker guys, you get the timing right, but it just looked like somebody that, oh shit, that was fast. Didn't see that. I'm not used to fighting people this quick. Fuck. Quick guy can also hit hard.
I'm gonna give him a pass on this one and wait and see what the next one's like.
Fair enough. Another fight we got wrong. Not upset about getting this one wrong. Pedro Munoz looked good in this fight.
Look, fucking
Beats
great.
Gutierrez.
Back the years.
Really, he does this every now and again. It's like when he fought Jimmy Rivera for the second time. A few fights ago, his last win previous. And he just reminds you, it's like, yeah, on my day, when maybe I don't get inside my head too much, I am one of the best fighters in the world.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, there's even like, the Frankie Edgar one was a bit of a robbery. Like, just, he is an elite fucking fighter.
He always starts well. He always tends to win the first round. Against Aldo, against a lot of these tough fights that he's lost against the real high-level guys. And then it just gets away from him. It's like he kind of loses confidence in himself a little bit. Or he can't maybe handle an adjustment or all the rest. But Gutierrez, I think he got dropped badly in that first round. And I think it really killed his confidence of wanting to do anything inside of the pocket. And you could see he was only trying to set up single shots at a time.
Yeah.
He was really trying to manage the distance. And, when you see Gutierrez at his best, he's just flowing in. He's throwing combos together. He's getting inside and outside of the pocket.
He was waiting to get like a good stinging shot on Munoz that could kind of just freeze him or something and just set up a flurry that was going to kind of balance the books, as it were, in terms of the damage. And I hate it. I hate watching when fighters have to kind of resort to that. But I've got to be honest, the way the fight was going, I was like, well, maybe this is Gutierrez's kind of like one kind of shot, because if he does keep just trying to like take the onus and just force his way somehow, some way to win round 2, he's probably getting knocked out, or he's getting really badly fucked up in round 3. Just he started kind of playing kind of those long odds with the long single shots. Sometimes it pays off. Very rarely it pays off, but it does sometimes pay off. Munoz looked fantastic though.
No, big win for him. Big bounce back win. Big win for Rafa Garcia. Very disciplined, but I thought he nullified the threat of Guida pretty well. Jabbed well off his back foot.
Yeah.
Guida's getting old, let's be honest. But
very old. I mean, did Guida even attempt to take down in that fight? I don't think he did.
Really, but the thing is I kind of feel like Rafa Garcia deserves some credit for that, because I felt he was, boxing fundamentals. He was landing, throwing that jab as he was moving backwards. He was keeping the distance whilst kind of throwing shots down the centre line. It wasn't. He stayed very low. He kept his nice wide stance. He didn't make it. He did everything right to make it difficult for somebody like Guida to get the reads.
Yeah.
Because Guida doesn't really have that power double leg. He's more of a wear you down and just throw volume and
run the pipe and string it together and get you to the cage. But credited with 3 takedown attempts.
He just never got the entry to get started on that. He always got pushed back, kept at distance, and then reset back in the middle.
Also, at his age, his speed, this fight was kind of stylistically built for Rafa Garcia, so that's exactly how it fucking panned out.
Yeah. We had a couple of real retirements earlier on the card. Cheeky fake retirement here. Guido wanted to say happy birthday to a few people, so took the gloves off, made it look like it might be his last one. He's at that age. It was in the air already. What was your thoughts on this? It didn't piss you off as much as Dana White.
I don't like people kind of disrespecting things, but at the same time as Clay Guida, I'll let it go. I don't care.
I'll tell you where it didn't, I don't think, help the evening. This was a night where they had 14 fights, 8 fights on the prelims, and a lot of fights went to decision on the prelims. I think they were stressing about time. They weren't, they'd had all these fights go to decision. They had the 10-minute double retirement with the Zach Cummings, Ed Herman fight that wouldn't have been in the broadcast schedule, and they couldn't really... There was a lot of things they had to deal with from a broadcast side, so I can kind of get...
But they were already moving them through quite quick, and they can always do, do someone dirty like they did Sam Alvey in Mexico City, where even if you win, they're like, yep, no interview, see you later.
Yeah, who didn't get the interview, actually? On the prelims.
Everyone got an interview, didn't they?
Yeah, I can't think of anyone who didn't.
But I'm saying, they always have plan B, there's always a way
I get what you're saying.
So, I don't think that's why Dana was pissed off about Clay Guida. I think Dana just gets easily pissed off.
That's a reasonable statement. Okay, that's the main card. Let's talk about these prelims. I really enjoyed these prelims. I thought that there was a bit of everything. There was emotion, there was tears, there was drama, there was controversy. One of the best fights was this fight of the night, Algeo versus TJ Brown.
Yes, this was fight of the night. Yeah.
This was a good fucking fight, man. I thought TJ Brown was looking really good. I'll be honest, I thought he was kind of exposing some big holes in Algeo. And then he just got caught. And...
Well, the elbow was fucking nice.
Was it an elbow?
Yeah.
Because it looks like he's just trying to, move out the way and pull a block up.
So I thought it was a hook at first, and I saw on the replay it is actually just a short elbow he comes in with. But... TJ goes downtown, and we were talking about this before we started recording. I gotta be honest, I would have stopped the fight in the first round. I would have given TJ Brown the win there. I think Herzog gave him... no, fuck, that was the Venata fight. Sorry, no. Ignore me.
Algier was eating shots, but he was never at a point where it was...
Yeah, I'm mixing up in my head with the Venata as our other fight now. TJ Brown did look good. Algeo has a lot of competitive fights and back and forth fights. This is kind of who Senor Perfecto is. But yeah, fucking great elbow at the end there, and then tapping him out. Very nice. Very smooth, surgical. I enjoyed it. This was definitely fight of the night.
No, I think the issue with Algeo is just it's very untechnical. It's a lot of looping shots. And I thought TJ Brown came in, lots of boxing slips, high guard, making him pay for a lot of kind of lazy shots in boxing range. But he's a wild man. Wild men through wild things.
Yeah, he's a Julian Erosa, he's a Juicy J, he's a fun guy. You're not looking to protect him and get him into the rankings and get big pay-per-view fights out of him. You're looking to put him on the pay-per-view main card with a fun fight. That's kind of his wheelhouse. That would sort of be the kind of pinnacle of his career, I think.
So what you're saying is he embraces his role as the entertainer.
Yes. Hence the wrestling promo he cuts at the end of the fight.
I didn't even get it was as a wrestling promo. I thought he was an Eagles fan and was just trying to use this moment to shit on Kansas City fans, which would actually have been way cooler than what you then told me it was, which is him trying to cuss a WWE promo because they've merged into one fucking stock company now. Yeah,
they asked him about it after the fight, and he said he was just having some fun with it because of the WWE purchase. And if they're looking for a skinny guy, he knows someone.
Do not approve.
He can hook him up.
I thought it was so funny when it was just...
Oh, wait, what's worse then? Algeo cutting wrestling promos or Clay Guida fake retirement?
Well, the problem is when I watched it, I thought Algeo was an Eagles fan that just did it to diss Kansas City fans. And I thought that was fucking awesome. I was like, yes, this man's an eagle down to his bones. And then I don't even know if he likes football. He was just doing so
Yeah.
in the moment I thought it was really cool, and and the problem with Clay Guida is he was the last one on the night. We'd already had the real retirement, the Algio fake retirement, and dissing on Kansas City, and then we'd had by Guida. It's a bit like, come on guys, can we just like not have any real or fake retirements further? Let's just get on with the evening. I didn't hate it, but I wish it hadn't happened if it's WWE, because I want UFC and I already have enough issue with my family thinking that I'm just like watching a bunch of fucking like Macho the Randy Man Savage shit on my weekends. The fact that they're merged into one company and also behaving like promos, I don't need this unless you can pull it off.
Well, I don't think we're going to see a lot of it, but
says you.
I mean, I'll take that over some of the truly awful post-fight interviews we've had. And also, I'll take that over like a flat interview, a quiet interview, a short interview. People used to love the BJ Penn one where it was just you go bjpenn.com and walk off. But I gotta be honest, I didn't love that. And frankly, a lot of the time, I'll skip post fights anyway.
I understand.
Because I watch everything the next day. I have it all like downloaded and ready. Just kind of skip fight to fight to fight. I just like to get all the action.
Yeah, if I'm watching a few fights that I've slept through the next day, I skip through them if the person I wanted to win lost. That's my rule. You definitely watched the post fight on this fight because Zach Cummings fought Ed Herman.
Yep.
We kind of said you said this. You kind of felt both guys might call this their last fight.
And I did say this was going to be a great one for the diehards, and turns out it was just a great one for the fucking casuals as well.
Well, we got, I think, 5 knockdowns?
I think it was 4 officially, but let me check.
It was 4 or 5 knockdowns. I'm pretty sure there were 12 knockdowns across the whole card. So if you're a fan of knockdowns, this was the card for you. 12 knockdowns in 14 fights.
Officially credited with 3, but I swear there was 4.
I'm pretty sure. I want to say 4. 4 coming in this fight. By halfway through round 3, I was kind of saying to myself, Ed Herman really needs to retire, man. Like, you want to talk about, we're having the conversation about damage. Like, no. This is the fight where this applies. Like, 42-year-old man dropped on multiple occasions by a guy who clearly wants to go out with a knockout in his fucking hometown. Did he need to be in that 3rd round? Probably not. I mean, even when he says to the ref after the second up kick, it wasn't my fault. I thought he was standing up. It's like, well, okay, you don't have an awareness of what's fucking going on.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that angle. I just think classic Ed Herman, like, shenanigans. But, I mean, fucking Zach Cummings is a guy, you know, he was a smaller 185. He trained with, like, welterweights. Coming in, like, looking fucking Brian Barberena as fuck at 205. But, Jesus fucking Christ, he has power still. He's on that list now of guys with knockouts in 3 weight classes.
Yep.
I've always been a fan. Always kind of been a bit of a fan of Ed Herman as well. So I really enjoyed this fight. I enjoyed the dual retirement. I enjoyed the moment between the guys. It was a cool moment.
I liked what Zach Cummings said as well, where he's just like, you know, this is my career. I didn't become a world champion, but I have some accomplishments and I can hang it up. And my daughter got to see me fight live. I thought, yeah, man, you know, not everybody is going to have their end as a world champ career, but that doesn't mean that you've had a bad career. Bit of an emotional note. Certainly got everybody a bit choked up. For that, we had a bit of controversy. Gillian Robertson down at strawweight.
We've missed out on
Brandon Royval. I'm sorry, we have.
That
man's getting disrespected all fucking week. He's put on the prelims.
Yeah, even Dana White was like, we fucked up.
Dana White admitted he fucked up. We fucked up by missing this fight. Partly because it was so fucking short, man.
Yes.
And then he just started and he lands the knee. You can't be hurt against Brandon Royval. That's the problem. If he hurts you and wobbles you, he's going in for the kill. Hands, chokes,
He defines opportunistic finisher. Like if you say to me, like, who's an opportunistic kind of style fighter, Like, the first one that jumps into my head is going to be Brandon Royval. That's just who he is. And frankly, his loss to the champ was through injury. It's not like, I think, one big win for Brandon Royval. Maybe put him
I
in there.
think he could potentially, if he sits out, be the next in line anyway, looking at the division.
Possibly.
I know Figueiredo said that he's staying at 125.
Figgy's got a fight booked now, hasn't
He's
he?
got a fight booked. I can't remember against who. But
Got
that's
a
somebody
high
that you
too.
think if that person beats Figgy, they're probably in line for the next shot. I'll be honest, when Brandon Royval was walking out for this fight, I thought a bit too emotional. I thought it wasn't going to go well for him. He just seemed very like the moment was really getting to him. And, it's weird with him because the fight ends in like 90 seconds. I don't know if he wins that fight, if it goes into round 2 and round 3. But that's kind of Brandon Royval. It's like he either wins the fight or he loses it. But fuck me, when he wins the fight, he wins the fight.
Yeah, I mean that's every fight bar the draws and no contest. But I know exactly what you mean. He is it's like if I lose the fight, I'm gonna lose it because of a mistake I made being too aggressive, and when I win the fight, it's because that risk paid off. This guy will take all the risks. He's like Tim Elliott with some real fucking ability. That's kind of mean, but you know what I mean.
I understand what you're saying. Big win for him. He gets a 50k bonus. Gillian Robertson gets a 50k bonus.
Yep.
Debut at strawweight. I thought she just looked. A minute into the fight, I was like, you should have been in this division the whole time.
Yeah, she looked phenomenal.
She
She
looked
looked
awesome.
absolutely phenomenal.
And Piera Rodriguez is physical for a 115er. And
Yeah.
Gillian Robertson was not struggling. I thought she looked physically excellent. I think she's moved to a proper gym now. She's not just doing this kind of like one-on-one training with Din Thomas as her only coach anymore.
Yeah, because she was at ATT left, and then I don't think she's at like a huge gym or anything. Maybe that might be good for her. Look, the thing is, like, as a female flyweight, it's just, have you got training partners? Because if you can't get them the training partners, like, there's only so far coaches can take you. So as long as she's got good training partners, like, it doesn't matter how big the gym is.
And for her style as well, you can't be undersized. And all the fights that she lost at flyweight, you'd look at and just go, okay, we need to round up the other parts of the game as well. But a big part of it is that you just get completely bullied by these much larger people. Tyler Santos, Macy Barber.
Yeah.
It's not a skill thing at this point. And now in this division, your grappling is going to be more dominant. You're going to be able to utilize it far more aggressively. And I'll be honest, I thought her striking looks a little bit better. I thought she looked a little bit more willing to stand, throw a few shots. I mean, she's not looking to end the fight on the feet, but you can see that she's trying to stand there a little bit more and use the strikes to then set up the wrestling.
Yeah. Which would be interesting to see how that pans out, because it can be a bit of a false fallacy when people drop down and weight and they're like, they seem to be a little bit more confident about getting hit, and they don't really appreciate how much the weight cut is really taking away their resilience.
My understanding was she was cutting like 3 pounds to get to flyweight.
Oh my god.
Like, it's not a huge cut. Like, it really was like that. Maybe it's that mentality of, I want to fight the bigger. Some people want to fight bigger people and like prove something to themselves that like they don't
Also,
need to.
some people really struggle to cut, and pound for pound, women tend to have a much harder time cutting. Or like 3 is ridiculous. Like you
I'm not saying 3 exactly, but we're not talking.
You could skip like 4 meals that week and do it, kind of thing.
She wasn't cutting weight to get down to flyweight. And for her style, you need to be at least putting yourself in the same weight category as, you don't have to be the heaviest girl. And she probably won't be the biggest or strongest or heaviest girl on fight night at strawweight. But she'll have enough weight to implement her style.
Yeah.
And Dana White gave her a big fucking minute-long shout-out on the post-fight press conference. Somebody asked him, saying, Gillian Robinson, she probably goes, for a lot of people under the radar. And he's like, not to me. Girl, win, lose or draw, brings it every time. She's not under my radar.
Oh, we've always been big fans.
Well,
Not a huge fan of the the tap or the verbal tap or whatever.
I didn't.
But
It's a weird tap. It's a tap like Chael Sonnen's tap against Anderson Silva. Just a single.
when it's like a one, it can almost be like it could be anything. For me, it's got to be two. It officially goes down as a verbal tap. I haven't seen anything more about it.
I didn't see her say the word. I wasn't looking at a mouth or a face when the replay was going on, but it didn't. I didn't see her like clearly mouthing out tap tap tap, or I didn't hear like a scream.
I mean, we think it's like Yessa versus Lee. We don't think it makes a difference. But for me, it's just like a principle. Like, just stop the fight at the right time.
The armbar was locked in. But for Piera Rodriguez, in a fight where she was getting pretty much dominated, and some of the attitude, she's undefeated. I think she's probably done pretty well and been pretty dominant in all of her fights. And the way she was behaving after the first round ended, she just looked like somebody that was really frustrated and just suddenly a little out of her depth. And
I think it was the second she got taken down in the second round, it was just...
Yeah, she was. There were so many things she was doing wrong. There's a lot that needs to be worked on. I think a defeat for her probably isn't the worst thing. And at the end of the day, there's enough controversy in this that if she has got a bit of an ego, she can kind of do the Sean O'Malley thing. Oh, that's bullshit. I'm really undefeated in my mind. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I can tell you that if Peterson doesn't pull her off, like there's armbars and then there's armbars that are locked in. That armbar was locked in. Like as he's pulling her off, you can see the shoulder really starting to be pulled back. I mean, I think the first thing that Brian Fitzgerald said on the broadcast was the arm's broken. I think his thought was he's pulled it off because the arm snapped and that's why he stopped it.
Yeah, her arm seemed to be okay afterwards.
It hadn't, but I'm just saying that it's...
Yeah, there are so many times where I've seen locked-in arm bars where... Well, not so many, but there are the occasional ones where locked-in arm bars and somehow they get out, you know, Hardy GSP. And in fact, generally, like with like women, like because they are like tend to be, again, pound for pound more flexible. There have been ones where I see arm bars get locked in and they can't finish it. And I'm like... Well, gee whiz, can you even armbar that lady? Like, how the fuck does that even work? I guess her elbows are just made of rubber and shit. I don't think that was necessarily the case with this one. I think I'm okay with, Gillian getting the win here. It's just... It's just a matter of principle.
I completely understand.
I just want the fight to stop at the right time. I know it's hard to be a ref, but guess what? It means you get held to a certain standard. Stop the fight at the right time.
Also agree. Couldn't agree with you more. And I would say this as well. I think this would have been more controversial if we were looking at a really even close fight and she just like snagged an armbar out of nowhere. Yeah. But, you know, sometimes you have to look at it and go, you're getting dominated here. Like there's nothing that we've seen that makes us think that you showed enough to merit that level of benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, the other thing is that what we've seen recently is if somehow, some way she could foul her, say, for example, pull her trunks down or something, then the refs are probably going to fuck up and not give her the position back. So, just the way these things are fucking going.
Yeah, inconsistency. We didn't really touch on that, but obviously the up kicks from Ed Herman. And
we talked about it before we were recording, but yeah, I was very pissed off that Zach Cummings lost the position both times he got fouled. Just... We talked about it several weeks ago, maybe even months ago. I would like to have very clear-cut fucking protocols, like when a fighter in a dominant position is fouled, even if you take a point away or whatever, or even if that fighter's like in this case of Davey Grant and Sun Sao was actually in bottom position, you go to the fouled fighter and you ask them,
do they want the fight?
Do you want to stand up? Do you want to go back to the same position? It shouldn't. It's almost like the refs are forgetting, and then they kind of retcon it afterwards, where they're like, "Oh well, you know, I thought after I took the point, or after like I thought he had the dominant position, so I wasn't going to do it." It's like, I think you just kind of fucked up when you did it.
It's too subjective, and it needs to be a kind of uniformed rule. Well, we're going to be talking about some refereeing again. Lando Venata gets defeated by Zell Huber on decision. Even more even fight after the first round, but I did think Zellhuber won all 3 rounds. As well as that, you think the fight should have been over in round 1 when Zellhuber dropped him and
I would have
hurt him.
stopped it. At the point where he'd already kind of changed position, but was still sort of taking damage on the guard, and then fully just shells up. At that point, for me, you're not intelligently defending yourself. That should be the end of the fight. It shouldn't be Jason Herzog then saying 2 or 3 more times, move Lando, move Lando, move Lando. And then he slowly starts the move. He's still taking damage. It just reminded me of that Weidman Rockhold fight when Rockhold took the title off of him, where it's just, even if they're not like the cleaner shots and they're coming on the guard, that is just repeated, unanswered shots. You are not defending yourself intelligently.
I can see this from both sides because on the one hand, based on the position that they're in, Lando is responding. Every time he was given a warning, he did kind of find a way to slightly change the position and eventually get out of it. I think he fought well enough after that to merit being given the opportunity. I think the real difference maker is the position that they're in. When you're in kind of like a half grapple, half striking position, so you've got a guy kind of on his knee, pressed up against the cage, but you're kind of slightly in his clinch, overhooking one hand and punching him with the other. If both guys were stood up, or he had a bit more distance, and he was just landing those shots in open space, for example, I think the fight gets called off. But because you're kind of quite close in proximity, I think it obscures how hard some of those punches coming through are. And one thing I would say is Zellhuber was landing a lot of heavy shots when he initially hurt him, but he did definitely kind of, gas out and start just kind of tapping him on the arm. And I do feel like Herzog kind of recognised that a lot of those shots weren't really heavy shots, and so he did allow a little bit more leeway based on that. But if that fight gets called off in round 1, I don't think anybody's complaining. There's no one that I think says that's an early stoppage, and I think maybe that's a telling sign.
Yeah, it's not like the end of the world for me, but that's where I would have stopped the fight, round 1 in that one. I just think we're moving to earlier finishes, fighter safety. We don't want to go back to the days of like the Steve Mazzagatis.
You say earlier finishes though. I think like you say though, it needs to be correct finishes in the same way as stopping the, calling the verbal tap in the Gillian Robertson fight too early is incorrect. We have to accept that these guys are willing to accept a certain amount of damage in pursuit of winning. And I think, one thing that you can tell very quickly is if a guy doesn't want to be in the fight anymore, it's very recognisable. Take, for example, Gerald Meerschaert against Joe Pfeiffer the other week, or Yanez against Rob Font, where they're shelling up in a way that is basically a signal to the referee going, I am done, I am hurt, stop this fight.
So I did feel at one point that is what I was seeing from Landau when it was fully, like, how well can I shell up because I just don't want to get hit right now. Anyway, Herzog's still a good ref. That was a good fight. Just for me, it's just a matter of principle. It was just like a few of these where I'm like, I just want to see better refereeing. And I know we had some kind of newer faces that kind of shit the bed a little bit as refs, but then we also had Keith Peterson and Jason Herzog not having their best nights either. It was a bit of a weird night for refereeing and judging.
I'm not as against the Lando one as you are, but I can see your point, and I do think Keith Peterson jumped in early. It is what it is. It didn't change the result. Zellhuber still got the win. I thought it looked really good. Really technical. Yeah. He's a big guy for the division. It just felt like Vanasa could never really get inside of a range where he felt comfortable.
He's also not the same guy that fought Tony Ferguson. He's so much older. You can't be that small and be the slower guy. So much of his game is built on kind of starting weird combos from the outside and then coming in. He used to love to set things up off that front side kick to the leg and then see what he could work, see what angle he could cut, what reaction he could force. He just doesn't seem to be able to do that at this level now. And a guy that's bigger, faster, longer, stronger. He did well. He was in the fight. I thought I think I gave him the second, but Zellhuber is definitely, he was well beaten. It was just a bad matchup for him, I thought.
No, very much so. Okay, let's talk about the first 3 fights on the card a bit more quickly. Denise Gomez gets the finish over Bruna Brasil, who looked technical, but just was never able to have the fight at her range. Denise Gomez, super aggressive, closing down the range, heavy hooks.
Yep.
Hurt her.
I picked this one based on name as well, so I don't even feel bad for getting that one wrong.
I got this one wrong as well. Terry Gilliam did not help us out. I got this fight wrong as well. I picked Aaron Phillips. You picked Gaston Bolaños.
Yep.
Bolaños, pretty solid.
Yeah, at his moments, he made some mistakes and he had to defend a lot of submission attempts there, but on the feet did look fantastic. I'm kind of excited to see Bolaños in the UFC. I don't think he's going to be like championship caliber, but I think he'd be a very good, very fun fighter.
First fight of the night, we had Jocelyn Edwards winning against Pudilova, pretty controversially. I didn't think she won. I'll take it though because I picked Jocelyn Edwards and I've had a bad streak recently, so that put me to 8-6 for the whole.
The thing is, I felt like Pudilova did more damage in the first 2 rounds, but it wasn't like, we talk about how there are close rounds that are clear, but if you just look at it in terms of damage, they were reasonably close. I think that the judges got it wrong, but the way that the commentary team was saying it's just about the worst decision I've ever seen. I was like, I'm pretty sure we've had worse decisions this year. That one's not that bad.
We've
It's
definitely
not that bad.
I can't think of a worse decision off the top of my head, but we've had a worse card this year. The judge that gave the fight to Cheeto against Santagan.
Oh yeah,
That's a much worse card than the Jocelyn Edwards one.
Yeah,
but when it's the first fight on the night, it does give you a little bit of a worry. You start thinking, oh dear.
Everyone both corners seem to know who's won. The commentary team are already talking about Pudilova moving forward with the victory, and then we're just waiting for Bruce Buffer to read out the scorecards as a formality, and then you're like, oh, what the fuck? But it wasn't as big a robbery as I think they played it up to be. It was just a bad scorecard. That's it.
And only 7 fights needed scorecards in the end. Fortunately, most of them were pretty clear after that. 7 finishes. I've got to say, huge shout out to Kansas City for this. That place was full, halfway through the prelims. You know how I feel about fight nights and cards where
the Johnny come latelys.
Yeah, and people just show up for the last 3 fights or just the main event. So fair play, Kansas City. You wanted a UFC card, you've waited for one, you got one, and you showed up, and I thought fans were pretty damn good.
Yeah, man.
Good card. That's the recap done, but bit of news to touch on. First and foremost, fights that we've lost.
Yeah, Dariush
versus Charles Oliveira. Oliveira's got a knee injury.
And that's really, really diminished the quality of that card as well.
It's a terrible card now. It feels
more like a fight night card now.
With a title. It's a fight night with a title fight.
Yeah.
The good news is the fight's getting rebooked for a month later. It's going to be on the 289 card, which in all fairness, headlined by Nunes versus Pena 3, could probably use a nice tasty co-main event just to help get bums in seats and sell some tickets. Sell some pay-per-views. So I don't think that's the end of the world. It also means that I think the UFC are trying to work something out short notice that they can add to 288. Gilbert Burns' name is being mentioned. He's looking to get something together. Doesn't look like it's going to be Leon, but maybe the UFC could coax Colby into an interim title fight. I know it would be ridiculous because Leon literally defended the belt 3 months ago. But this is the UFC, and Leon said no to fighting the person they want him to when they wanted him to. So they might just do some shenanigans just to piss him off.
Okay, yeah, I can see it from that angle, but I just think Colby just kind of would assume that somehow, some way they're going to force him into taking that fight. And I can't remember if we said this before we start recording or not, but I believe Bilal Muhammad's kind of penciled in as the backup fighter in case he either misses weight. So I don't really know who's available for Burns right now.
Well, that card needs a fight.
Unless, for the fun of it, he takes a short notice middleweight fight. I'd watch that shit.
I would rather see him not do that.
I mean, he basically fought a middleweight in Chimaev, so it's like,
Yeah,
why
but at
not?
least that middleweight was sucked down.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be the world's biggest middleweight, you know?
So you're saying he doesn't fight Paulo Costa?
No, I'm saying he doesn't even fight necessarily a ranked fucking guy, but if that's what he's looking to do, that I think that's a more realistic option than reaching down at welterweight and potentially fucking up the number next to your name.
Well, today is Monday. The UFC are meeting on Monday to discuss this. So the podcast is probably already going to be out when this news gets watched, but I recommend watching that space because we might have something tasty. One thing that has improved 288 is we no longer have Jonathan Pierce versus
Bryce Mitchell.
We now have Mozvar Evloev fighting Bryce Mitchell, which is a far harder fight for Bryce Mitchell. It's like, hey man, do you remember that undefeated monster that we gave you that you lost to? Well, here's another undefeated monster that's now taking this fight on short notice against you.
I like it. I'm a lot more excited about this fight. No offense, JSP, but
it's a better fight.
Yep.
I think Bryce Mitchell can win it. He's got a better chance of beating Evloev right now than he ever had of beating Topuria when he fought Topuria.
Yeah, I mean, Evloev's even likely to try and start exchanges, grappling exchanges with a guy like Bryce. I don't think he even needs to try and chase the takedown. I think he'll have opportunities to start from guard and work from there, and it's just going to be a much better fight for the fans, much better fight for Bryce. I hope JSP still gets a good fight when he comes back.
Yeah, well, he's been on a roll, I'm sure he will. And it's not official fight announcement, but John Jones has kind of been tweeting again, talking about UFC are talking, saying that they're looking at Madison Square Garden in November for him versus Stipe.
And as a retirement fight as well.
Yeah. He only wants to do one more. I think that's a pretty good idea.
Well, if Stipe whips his ass, I don't think he'll retire, but you know.
Well, I think they both retire.
I mean, if I'm Stipe and I beat John Jones, I gotta figure the next pay-per-view is gonna sell pretty well as well. And you're kind of in. So what? Like he's gonna get the winner of the Pavlovich Blades fight.
Unless they get Ngannou back.
That's not happening.
Ngannou's trying to apologise to the UFC.
Really?
Apparently, yeah. It's not gone well for him outside of the UFC structure. It's actually quite sad. We need to do a whole we could do a whole podcast on the Ngannou situation. But basically, a lot of his appeal, I think, from a cross-promotion boxing standpoint, only really had the valuation it had when he was a UFC champion.
Well, you say that with them as like the fights they're putting together for the heavyweights at the moment. Like, you'd probably take Ngannou over most of these guys. Like, it would be more exciting.
Yes, but none of that changes the fact that he's not.
And those guys are going to get paid more than he did for that next fight than he probably did in his whole UFC career combined.
Well, the word on the street is that he's asking for too much money from everybody, and he's not getting the money that maybe he thought from the boxing offers and the boxing promoters he's talking to. And the longer he's on the sidelines, the less valuable he becomes. The further away from being the UFC champion he goes, and the older he gets, the less interest there's going to be.
But at that point, like, the UFC aren't going to pay him, so I think PFL is probably going to be the biggest payday, or ONE FC. Probably.
Maybe, but at PFL, you're not on $1 million. You're not getting millions for each fight.
Some of the guys are getting a lot. Pettis, Burgos, they get a lot.
Interesting.
Like, and one of the things that they've kind of been saying is some of these guys are going over to the PFL because they know they're not going to get hit by elbows. They know that they're going to make more money losing 2 or 3 fights, or like winning 1, winning 2, losing 1, losing 2, whatever, than the guy that wins the tournament outright. So, it's not a competitive option. It's not a legacy option. But if he just wants money, like he's gonna make more money in 1 year in the PFL than he's gonna be able to make in the next 3, 4, 5 years in the UFC if he was gonna try and fight for that long. If he does PFL twice, he's laughing.
Well, all I'm saying
But
is...
I'm not saying that's what I want to see. I think all of us want to see him go somewhere a bit bigger, somewhere with a much more competitive division.
And that's neither here nor there. In November, Stipe versus Jones. I'd be down for that. And Adesanya wants to get back in quite quickly as well. Maybe he fights in August or something.
Nice.
So, plenty of action coming. Big weekend of fights this weekend. Pavlovich versus Blades. That could be a title eliminator. We'll be discussing that in our pick show and predictions video, which will be coming out later this week, but will be recorded right after this one. Josh, anything else we need to talk about, or is that the show?
We are running out of time.
Yeah, it's getting late.
Bye, Laurie.
Bye, Laurie. Bye,
Bye,
Dave.
Dave.
Like, subscribe. Peace out, guys.